Hey all, Chris Bassett here, and I'll be doing a beginner's guide for Final Fantasy XI on the Horizon server. I've got about 40 days played game time, and I'd like to share my experience. Let's get into it. From your browser, head over to HorizonXI.com, and you'll want to create an account and then download the launcher. Everything's pretty straightforward, just go ahead and follow the instructions. You will need to click like continue as the game's downloading, so don't leave your PC idle. Also, I recommend that you join the HorizonXI Discord. It'll have all sorts of information about the game, updates on the server status, as well as if you link your account, you'll get 30 extra spaces of inventory. HorizonXI.com is where you will create and delete characters under the account management. So I logged into my account. You can see you can have a total of 3 characters. I've got my main there, and then you can create a new character. If you do want to delete a character, tab over to the character, and then you want to go to the settings, and here you can delete a character. Keep in mind that there's a 7 real day wait time before you can delete characters. Next, I'm going to create a new character, and then I'm going to go over some information about the races, their different stat bonuses, as well as the city locations. So there's 5 different races. You have Hume, Elven, Tarutaru, Mithra, and Galka. They all have a different appearance as well as different stat bonuses for like strength, magic points, dexterity, vitality, whatever. And that being said, certain races have advantages while playing certain jobs. Job refers to your class like warrior, monk, mage, or thief, etc. The Hume race has average stats and they can play every job well. And because they are balanced, they won't specialize on any one job. The Elven race has high strength, high mind, and the lowest intelligence. So for that reason, they make a good melee damage dealing class. They excel at paladin tanking. They're poor black mages, though. On the opposite end of the spectrum, the Tarutaru have the highest magic pool and the highest intelligence, so any mage class they excel at. However, they have low vitality, so they make a poor tank class. Mithra are an only female race. They have high dexterity, so they make great thieves. They also perform well as melee with all the extra critical hits. Galka have the highest hit point pool, making them great melee damage dealing or tank class. They have the lowest magic points, so they struggle as a caster. I'm going to go ahead and pick an Elven for this next character. From this screen, you can pick the different faces and hairstyles that you want. Now keep in mind, after you click on it, it doesn't exactly look like this, so it'll show a more accurate representation of what the in-game head will look like. Take your time and browse around. Keep in mind that you won't be able to change your race or hairstyle in-game. It's permanent, so you have to delete your character if you want to redo this, which is a 7-day wait period. I will say the only caveat to this is the sex change extension, and I'll go into that a little bit later. But you can pick your hairstyle and then the height and size of your character. Small, medium, as large is your only options. And then here's the first job screen. So you can choose between the 6 starting jobs, which would be Warrior, which is your classic melee and tank class. Monk, which is a damage dealer with fists. White Mage, which is your basic support character, your main healer of the party. Black Mage, which does a lot of extra damage with magic. Red Mage, it's a support character, healing and enfeebling the enemy. And then Thief, which has access to like Treasure Hunter as well as big damage. You'll mostly pull the monsters back to the party as a thief. I'm going to pick a monk for this character and then proceed to the next screen. So from here, this is where you can choose your starting nation. You can choose from 3, Sandioria, Bastok, and Windurst. So I'm going to be a little biased and I'm going to say, as a starting beginner player, Sandioria is probably going to be the best location because it's typically in first place. The 3 nations have a conquest war, and if you're in first place, you get better access to gear as well as teleports. Bastok is usually in last place, and then Windurst is in the middle or first. Now, granted, all 3 nations are equally, you can progress the game equally. However, Sandaria has an advantage when it comes to Eco Warrior. There's a weekly quest called Eco Warrior where you can get 10,000 gil and 10,000 XP, and the majority of the server runs this quest. So if you start off in Sandioria, you're going to have access to this quest, and it'll be a lot easier to get your feet on the ground. So I'm going to go ahead and name myself. So, there are rules to the name, like nothing dirty, nothing filthy, but you can check for availability of the character's name, and then you're ready to go. All right, with your character created, I created a monk called I Punch Stuff. You can go ahead and start up the launcher, and then this character will be on the server. So back on my desktop, just go ahead and open up the launcher. We're going to want to go into the launcher and configure a few things just to make the game a little smoother, run a little better. And I'll point out some of the things that I did for my game setup. In the launcher, go ahead and go to your settings. You'll want to set your window resolution. So mine's 1920 by 1080. And then you want to put it in windowed mode to begin with. This will allow you to move some of the extensions around. If it's not in windowed mode, you're going to have a problem moving some of like your mini-map and stuff around. Also, open your gamepad configuration so you can play with a controller. I play with controller, so the majority of my tutorial will be in related to that. But I have some keyboard instructions as well. But you want to scroll down to the bottom where it says input XF, and then you want to go ahead and test the gamepad. This will allow you to basically see if everything's working correctly. You should see, you know, when you press a button on your controller, what buttons actually work, and then the joysticks work. I'm going to put up a couple of screenshots for the controls for the game. So this will be straight out of the manual, and then you can pause it and then look back and kind of see what controls do what. So I pulled these photos right out of the old Final Fantasy XI online Square Enix book. It's like 20 years old, so yeah, forgive me, but go ahead and pause and zoom in to read all the descriptions. A lot of the basic controls and stuff still apply to the Horizon server. On the next page, what we're going to want to do is adjust the HUD settings. So if you go to the sub menu where it says instead of general, go to graphics. Now you can adjust your menu resolution. This really helps because some of the text is really small, and so you set this menu resolution to roughly like 2/3 of your background resolution. It'll just make it a lot easier to read the text bars as well as see all the smaller, older images. Next, I'm going to go over a few of the extensions I use. Select the extension menu. This will just make the game easier to play or better to look at. So there's a few of them that I definitely recommend. You definitely want the mini-map. Your nameplate, that just kind of changes the way that the text above your head looks. This mini-map is pretty important, though, because it'll show, like it says, a mini-map, which was not available in the retail game, and it'll just make it easier to identify monsters, NPCs on the map. I'd highly recommend all maps, because that'll give you every map in the game. And as a new player, you'll need all the help you can get navigating, but otherwise you got to pay for all the maps or do quests. Call for help block, that just prevents you from calling for help on monsters. The checker, that's very important. It'll actually show the level of the monster compared to your level, which is useful in knowing what monsters to fight and not to fight. Because in this game, even a monster one level ahead of you can easily kill you. The Equipmon extension will show your gear at all times. If you're doing like gear swaps for different spells or abilities, it'll show and make sure those are working properly. You want the HXUI. This is going to be the most important add-on to put on. It's going to rehaul like all the graphics on the screen and update everything, make it look real nice. It can take a while to configure it though. The MobDB for database, it shows like detailed information about the monster, like how it will aggro to you or what elements or weapons it's weak to. Pet info will show the information about your pet if you're a Beastmaster or Summoner. And here's what I was talking about earlier when I said, sex change. If you're wanting to swap, your character's face or hairstyle or race, you technically cannot do that, but this will allow it to look like that. The timers extension will show you the timers on your spell casts, abilities, and so forth. So it's useful for tracking your different spells and cooldowns. So let's go ahead and go back to the home screen, and then we'll tab down a couple times until I can see Play Horizon, and then go ahead and launch the game. So I'm going to fast forward through this loading process. You just accept, select your character. There's the monk guy, and then we're in the game. So a big thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to clean up your screen because there's a lot of stuff everywhere. So I'm going to go over a few things that'll make it easier to kind of manipulate your heads-up display and then configure the chat boxes and whatnot. So because we're running the game in windowed mode, we can now shrink the windows down, and this will allow us to shift click and drag the icons around. If you hadn't done this, it'll make it much more challenging to like grab an icon and move it around the screen. All right, so this first icon right here, this is the HXUI menu. Here is your experience points and your job level. That'll show that icon, and then down here it will be your health, your magic points, and your tactical points. So you can move that around. That's kind of like a display for your abilities in combat. Go ahead and open up the main menu, which is the square button or the minus button on the keyboard. Use the D-pad to scroll over to configure, and then from here we can manipulate several different settings in-game. I'd definitely come over to inventory and then turn that to on so you automatically sort everything, otherwise you're not constantly managing the inventory. In the chat filters and windows option, you can change the size and what's filtered in the chat box, just kind of cleaning up your heads-up display as well as any extra information you don't necessarily need. On the next couple options, you have various miscellaneous, like 1, 2, 3, that's unique to the Horizon server and gives additional customization. I like to have my damage on the screen as opposed to in the log so it doesn't clutter up the log. Go ahead and scroll down. Icon 1 and 2, that just changes the your status buffs or icons to an upgraded graphic. And then here you can lock your armor style. It's like a glamour sort of thing. On miscellaneous number 2, there's some keyboard options to adjust your playstyle with mouse and key. You can also adjust the background aspect ratio to fit the size of screen you're playing on. On miscellaneous 3, to be honest, I just turned all of these on. They're going to give you a better quality experience by tracking timers or improving the graphics or icons. I do like to come over to the mouse and camera option and then invert my third-person camera. Just makes it easier to control the camera. Next, if you type in HXUI, that'll give you access to the configuration menu of the HXUI overhaul design. It's pretty extensive, but you just click down on all the drop-down icons, and here you can change the size, shape, information, color of all your upgraded heads-up display menu. I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's a lot of information. This video was already an hour and a half, and I've tried to cut it down. So have fun, experiment with it, but it's all pretty much self-explanatory. All right, type /MM for minimap. We'll work on that next. It'll bring up the minimap menu, and here's a similar concept where it has drop-down menus where you can change the size, shape, location of the minimap. Keep in mind you need to be in an area where the minimap will be displayed for you to see it on your screen. But other than that, you can basically put the X and Y position at 0, 0, and it should pop up on your screen. So here I'm out in town, and there you can see the minimap popped up on the screen. It's that square at the bottom corner. You can click, shift, drag that around in windowed mode. You can also change the size and shape and zoom in, zoom out, all the features on that menu. All right, so I'm going to go into a few tips to actually play the game. This game's 20 years old, and it does not hold your hand. So that's pretty challenging. I will say, since it is so old, there's tons of guides online of how to, basically do quests, do missions, crafting. Any of the information can be found. I either do a Google search, or if you join the Horizon Discord, they have a Horizon Wiki, which has information specific to the server. So if you took my suggestion and started your character in Sandaria, here is the NPC that gives you that Eco Warrior quest. It's at this location. It's recommended that you be level 20, and then you can do that. Most people do it on Sunday around 10 a.m. If you're trying to do quests and you want to double check to make sure that you've acquired them, you can go into your main menu, and here, let's go over the menu real fast. So you can check on your profile. That's just like your allegiance to what country you are, your progress and your missions. That'd be your job levels, the jobs that you have leveled and unlocked. And the next one is your combat skills. Only certain jobs can use certain weapons or more proficient in weapons. Like Thief is the best with a dagger. Warrior is the best with a great axe. If you do any kind of crafting like fishing, cooking, woodworking, those are all tracked here. The different cities have different guilds, which you'll need to be part of a guild, and you can't start that until level 15. If you slide over to the equipment menu, this is where you can equip and unequip gear. You can also build macros, which I'll go over a little bit, into how you can gear swap different weapon sets. Like say you need a strength set for your weapon skill, or you want magic points for a spell. The next one would be your magic that you have learned. You have to be a certain level and acquire the scroll to learn the magic. Most of the black and white magic you have to buy or do quests to acquire. Some of the summoning, you have to fight a boss to be able to summon that boss. There are usable items. You can purchase those from NPCs, you can craft them, you can find them, but you can use those craftable items in battle, like a potion to restore your hit points or magic points. Under the abilities, it shows your different job traits or job abilities. For example, I'm a monk. It has access to martial arts, which allows me to punch faster. The 100 Fist job ability allows you to punch incredibly fast. It's a 2-hour ability. And then weapon skills. When you earn a certain amount of points by punching, like it's called tactical points, you can then use a weapon skill which does extra damage to the enemy. Every job gains more abilities as it levels up, but it's generally every 5 levels you get new abilities. The next menu option is party. You can search for a party. In Final Fantasy XI, it's teams of 6. You have 6 people per party. You can team up, and then you can fight monsters for higher experience points. You can search for a party, and then you'll show up in this menu. People can then send you tells and invite you to a party. And then you group accordingly. Generally, it's a 10-level gap, so if you're level 10, you want to be searching for people between level 10 to 20. There is an auto-party feature, but no one really uses that, so my suggestion would be to put your party flag up and then have someone else invite you to their party, and just ask them. People are super friendly, and just tell them that you've never done it before, and they'll be more than willing to help you out. Next on the list is the trade function. Some NPCs will have quests that require you to trade them items to complete the quest. You can also trade with other players, whether it be gil or items. Something you typically see is like asking for teleports, and then you will trade that person 1,000 gil to teleport you to an area. The next item is Link Shell. That's like its own social page, so it's basically like a chat room where you can talk to other people. You have to actually have a Link Shell item in your inventory and then equip it. It doesn't hurt to shout in town. Just say new player looking for a Link Shell, and people will generally help. Speaking of that, there's certain ways to communicate with other players. You can type the word say to talk to your general vicinity. Shout would be your current area. Tell would be an individual person. So you tell and then their name, and then it's like a whisper. You talk directly to them. You can also highlight the chat log, select their name, and then you can sell them a tell directly as opposed to typing their entire name out. You can also type /yell to talk to all cities. You gotta accept the terms and conditions before Horizon will allow you to do that. Let's go over navigation a little bit. In your menu, it says region info. This is basically an overview of the world map. It generally shows you what areas are connected to what areas. More specifically, it's showing you the conquest rankings. Remember in the beginning when I was saying the 3 nations are at war, and whoever's in first place has better access to items, gear, etc. Also, each of the different areas can be teleported to, provided you do a supply run. Talk to the gate guard, and if your nation has that area under control, you can do the supply run, and then you can teleport to that area by use of an NPC. This is going to be your best form of transportation. A lot of the crystals in town say you can use those as teleports, but that feature has been removed in HorizonXI. Next on the map, you can set markers on the map, or you can wide scan if you're out in the field. And if you have a job ability with the wide scan, you can then see monsters on the map. Under the missions tab, you can track any missions you're under, Zilliard or Chains of Promathia. You can also track your quests in this log. Final Fantasy does a really good job of not being too descriptive, so you almost have to remember things. I just go back to online and look up a guide in regards to that quest, and that'll kind of walk you through it. And then the Mog Safe will basically show you the contents of your storage. You can get more inventory space by talking to a goblin in Juneau and doing quests for him, or if you complete the story missions, you unlock more of the Mog wardrobe spaces. And then as I was saying before, if you link your account to the Horizon Discord, come down to the Welcome tab, click that link, and then follow the instructions, and you'll gain access to 30 extra Mog satchel spaces. Let's go outside of town, and I'm going to give you a couple of tips about combat. I'm going to fast forward through the running, but before you enter combat and leave town, I recommend you getting a signet. All 3 nations have guards by the exits. This signet will provide a bonus to your recovery, XP loss, as well as it'll give you the access to gain crystals and conquest points when defeating enemies. The main use of crystals is for crafting. They also sell very well on the auction house, so it can be a great way for a new player to make gil quick. You can also purchase items and sell those as well, or equip them. So I highly recommend always having a signet on. There's no downside. These guards also give you the ability to do an outpost quest. As I said before, the outpost quest is how you teleport. And then there will be a NPC close by that gives you your missions. This would be your first mission if you're a Sandarian. Talk to this guy. He'll get you started in your mission line of quests. You got to go find an axe. There's guides online, so, if you can't start your mission or you're having trouble, just search it up online and there'll be a guide. So I'm going to zone out and then do a little tutorial on combat. All of these enemies right outside of the nation's walls will be enough to get you from level 1 to 10. After that, you have to find harder enemies by using that checker. So the basic idea here is to tab target an enemy, select confirm to bring up a mini menu, and then you can select a few options. You can select attack, which starts an auto attack, magic, which starts, casting a magic ability. I usually check an enemy first, that way I can see its level relative to mine to see if I can defeat it or not. So select attack to start an auto attack cycle, and then run within range of the enemy if you're a melee, and you should automatically be doing an attack cycle. You can also select the magic option to use any magic available to you, or you can use the ability option to use any abilities that you currently have unlocked. As you fight enemies, you'll gain skill ups in whatever abilities you're using. So, for example, when the rabbit tries to hit me, I evade it, so I got a 0.1 evasion. I'm punching the rabbit, so my hand-to-hand skill is increasing by 1. The same applies to any other weapons or skills or magic skills. And the higher the skill level, the more effective you are at it in combat. When you hit certain tiers of weapon skills, you gain access to an ability, which is called a weapon skill, where you can unleash extra damage considering your tactical points are high enough level. My skill level hit 5, and I learned combo. We'll target this enemy, start an auto attack. My tactical points are more than 1,000, so then I just go ahead and select combo from abilities and perform the weapon skill. Now's a good point to introduce macros. From the macro menu, you can create different macros, which are basically shortcuts to using abilities, weapon skills, or magic skills. Once again, I've got some old photos from the manual if you want to pause and zoom in to read, but it goes over the basic setting up and activating of the macros. So for example, because I'm playing on controller, I can hit the L2 button and bring up a series of macros. This allows me to quickly activate ability as opposed to selecting it from the menu. So in the creation mode, I'm going to rename this macro to combo, and then here I'm going to write in the line. So it'll be /WS for weapon skill, the word combo for combo, and then T for target. The different macros and things you can do can get pretty complicated. So if I get enough support, I'll make some additional content that go in depth into macro making. Just go ahead and leave comments or questions down below. So you've been grinding, you're level 10 now, and you have a ton of items you need to get rid of. In town, there's NPCs. You can usually NPC stuff for a decent price instantly. NPCs will have, gear, weapons, food for sale, and they'll also allow you to sell your stuff. But for not very much. You make very minimal gil. So I'd recommend as a new player, go to the auction house. You can find these in all the major cities. Go ahead and go up to the window, and then you can navigate the auction house menu, and I would sell your items on the auction house. 95% of the stuff that you sell, you'll make more money at the auction house than NPC. There is a few fish and other junk items that you can sell to make more money. But here you can see the auction house basically has everything you'd need. It's a player-based economy, and everything's based on like a demand. So it has everything you need from weapons, items, food that helps you in battle, recovery, status items, so on and so forth. Feel free to spend hours at the auction house just seeing what you want. But when you're ready to sell something, you can either bid to buy or sell to sell, obviously. So I'd choose the items that you want to sell, and then you can look at the price history so you can see the most recent transactions. Go ahead and bid accordingly. If you say something sells for 100 gil, but you want to sell it for 200, it may not sell for a while. But if you want to sell it relatively quickly, sell it just a little bit undercut, the next person. They get mad at you. But your crystals you've been collecting, those sell really good, basically all the time. But on the weekends, since there's more players, the crystal prices will be lower. So I wouldn't recommend selling on the weekends. I'd sell middle of the week. So it can fluctuate from like double. Another option for selling things is your bazaar. So if you go to the bazaar menu, you can then highlight items inside your inventory, and you can sell those bazaar items directly. So people will inspect you. They'll see you got a little pouch next to your name, and then they can buy from your bazaar. Now, when items sell on the auction house, they're not delivered to you directly. You need to go to your Mog house and then collect it from the delivery box. Talk to the Moogle guy, select delivery box, and if things sold, they'll be there. You can put up to 21 items on the auction house, and I think they're on there for 7 days before they're automatically removed. You can also send items in guild to other players. Just put their name in the delivery box and then send it to them. That's going to be it for the beginner guide. If it was helpful, hit the like button. I appreciate that. Any questions or comments, put below. You want to see me make other videos, put that in the comments. If you want to help support, I've got links to Amazon. Check that out. No extra cost to you. You can throw a couple pennies at me. Thanks.